man is not called a famous hero from the number of war tales he narrates, but from the number of wars he has fought and won. A man is not called a famous hero from the number of war tales he narrates, but from the number of wars he has fought and won. Hello and welcome to Royal Afternoon Edition, the 2 p.m. news on 88.4 Royal FM and live on Facebook on Royalfm Cameroon with me, Promise Akante, coming up in this edition. November 4, 1982, November 4, 2020, 38 years ago, Cameroon's first president announced he was stepping down. What was the reason behind Ahijo's unprecedented move?
Cameroonians were so surprised that evening, when he stood up and said he was leaving his post as the president of the republic. People were very afraid of the unknown because Cameroonians did not believe the almighty Ahijo would relinquish power.
Get details in this newscast and still to come, get the juiciest vibes of the 2020 US presidential elections when Abel Belasamari comes in with our special page of the news. And then in sports, Mbeng Emmanuel will bring us the chances of the Intermediate Lions of Cameroon as they take on Futura Kings in an international friendly. Stay with us. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. My name is Promise Akante. Today, November 4, 2020, marks exactly 38 years since Cameroon's first president, Amadou Ahidjo, resigned from office and handed over to his then Prime Minister, Paul Biya, who was sworn in on the 6th of November, 1982. Jessica Tangana, in her following report, recalls the history and gives us its significance.
The late President Amadou Ahidjo, elected in May 1960 as the first president of Republic of Cameroon, decided on the 4th of November 1982 at the age of 58 to resign as head of state, leaving his place to his constitutional successor, Prime Minister Paul Biya. Humeyi Bertrand, a politician, give us an overview.
Cameroonians were so surprised that evening, when he stood up and said he was leaving his post as the president of the republic. People were very afraid of the unknown because Cameroonians did not believe the almighty Ahijo would relinquish power. The question on everyone's lips was, why was he resigning? But the answer partly comes from him because he said he was resigning due to tiredness and ill health after 24 years of centralized and autocratic power.
What impact the 4th of November had or has in Cameroon's history?
His resignation has intensified the Anglophone question. Under normal circumstances, being in a bicultural and bilingual country normally would have replaced giving his position of the head of state to an Anglophone in order to stop the domination of the Anglophones. The resignation of Ahidjo brought to Cameroon is the intensification of tribalism. Some people thought that it was their time to reign over the other Cameroonians. So the intensification of tribalism, corruption took a different dimension after Ahidjo left power.
Humeyi Bertrand tell us more on the significance of this day for Cameroonians.
It has permitted Cameroonians to be able to compare Ahidjo's regime and Biya's regime. And any Cameroonian can agree with me that we have moved from grace to grass. There is nothing positive we can compare Paul Biya to Ahidjo. The economy is collapsing. Our living standard is one of the poorest in Africa. And so we tend to sometimes cry and say, Ahidjo, where are you?
That report there by Jessica Atangana. Meantime, the true story behind the resignation of President Amadou Ahidjo seems to be untold, as historians say there was more to it than meets the eye. Once more, Humeyi Bertrand tells us some of these reasons unknown to history.
The coming of President Mitterrand to France in 1981 was a big blow to Ahidjo's government and his political career. In the early 1970s, as a leftist or a socialist, François Mitterrand sent some of lawyers to defend Ernest Wangi, who himself was a leftist during the UPC crisis. But Ahidjo vehemently rejected the offer of François Mitterrand. That was the beginning of their problem. And so when in 1981, François Mitterrand became a presidential candidate in France and Ahidjo campaigned against him. By the end of the day, he won the elections. It was crystal clear that Ahidjo and François Mitterrand could never eat in the same dish. Ahidjo was simply wise enough to leave power before power leaves him.
That was Humeyi Bertrand speaking there to Jessica Atangana. Away from November 4 events, Cameroon's Minister of Finance says the 2021 state budget will be oriented towards the production sector so as to reduce the importation of agricultural products. Minister Louis-Paul Motaze was speaking yesterday at the cabinet meeting for the month of October, chaired by the Prime Minister, Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph Dion Gute. Here now is an excerpt of Minister Louis-Paul Motaze.
There were some problems that have been raised by the parliamentarians. One of those preoccupations was the fact that it's time to see the government taking measures to improve the production of some products as rice, as maize, and so on, because we are still importing them and we are losing a lot of money. So in the budget, we put an average of 50 billion for this target. The measures that we have taken put an emphasis on the fact that we should be very cautious in all what we are going to do.
On his part, the Minister of the Economy, Planning and Regional Development, Alamin Usman, may profile the 2021 budget, adding that priority will be given to mature projects.
Be focused on infrastructure and production sectors. Why? Because we believe that to reach the level of an emerging country by 2035, we have to transform our economy. And this is where we believe the wealth creation will take place, where a job will be created, and where we'll be able to really accelerate the development of our country. For 2021, investment budget will only cover projects which have reached maturity level accepted in conformity with the decree of the Prime Minister, Head of Government of 2018. This is going to be certainly in line with the finalization of some of the projects being carried out so far. I think of Oceania 2021. I think of the African Cup of Nations 2022. I think of a Planet, which is to accelerate growth in our country.
That was Minister Alamin Usman May speaking there. It is worth recalling that the 2021 state budget will be tabled at the National Assembly and then at the Senate when both houses of Parliament meet in ordinary session, as both the upper and lower houses of Parliament have been convened in ordinary session for November the 12th, 2020. Away from the budget, the Minister of Finance, Louis-Paul Motaze, has placed a ban on some companies involved in illicit public offerings in Cameroon. According to a press release from the Ministry of Finance, the companies involved in illegal operations are called upon to immediately cease from the public offerings an activity which involves the illicit sale of equity shares to the public for unrealistic gains. Meanwhile, the companies involved are expected to give reports to the Ministry of Finance on the effectiveness of reimbursement of the unauthorized savings from national and foreign business persons. Smoke has no choice but to go up to the sky, no matter how haphazard the wind blows. Smoke has no choice but to go up to the skies, no matter how haphazard the wind blows. Still to come, the kidnap of teachers in Kumbo has sparked reactions from other teachers who say,
the government has decided not to check where they get these guns. Why would they not arrest, kill the helpless citizens like us teachers with chalk?
Get details on this and more in the minutes ahead. Reports from the Southwest region say the Kulu Memorial College in Mile 4, Limbe, Southwest region has been attacked this morning by armed men. Teachers were tortured, the assailants stripped students of their uniforms and set part of the school ablaze, including the books and school bags of the young learners. This comes less than 24 hours after teachers were kidnapped in Kumbo in the Northwest region of Cameroon. We recall that Limbe is one of the most chaos-free towns in Cameroon's English-speaking regions. Take a listen to the ambience, the wailings of the school children, and the heartless, daring, and nonchalant voices of the perpetrators as captured on social media.
As I don't know the talk, as I don't do the talk, as school say me go with the gun at the office and so. Can't be joking. You're going to be joking up for the. Give me one. Give me that. I'll pour all the people inside. When I go school, when I say I go school, now me be born to kill. Now you know.
Hoping that the intelligence service of our country will track down and punish the perpetrators. Now, as you heard, in one of our top stories, 11 teachers are said to have been kidnapped by separatist fighters in a Presbyterian school in Kumbo, northwest region of Cameroon. This Tuesday, the 2nd of November 2020, there were in total 12 teachers who were reportedly kidnapped in front of their students, but one managed to have escaped. This incident comes immediately after the 7 school children were killed in the Mother Francisca School in Kumba last Saturday, the 24th of October 2020. This letter reporter Frinui Crispin interviewed some school teachers to get their state of mind concerning the abduction of their colleagues. She now reports.
Barely 1 week after the Kumba massacre, 11 teachers have been kidnapped in Kumbu by separatist fighters. This situation has left teachers in a devastating atmosphere. Mr. Julius Neba is one of the teachers.
It is painful to me that my colleagues who are going to impart knowledge into the heads of children are being kidnapped. The crime is directly proportional to that of the kids that were killed who were out to acquire knowledge. It's a painful thing and it keeps happening, and we teachers are mothers, parents and nurses to these children. They keep tormenting us because we don't know how to defend ourselves and we belong to a government. What is now the purpose of this government at this moment?
These teachers say the teaching profession has become scary because of the lack of security and uncertainty in the school milieu.
How can I feel secured? We are dealing with a group of people who we don't know those involved, and they killed in Kumba. Now they kidnapped in Kumbu. Who knows where the next will happen and what will happen? I cannot feel secure. I now teach in the classroom with fear in my heart. And how can you be very, very productive with that type of fear?
It's caring for you to send your own child, or even you as a teacher, to even find yourself in a classroom teaching because you don't know what can happen in the next minute.
According to this teacher, the current situation is as a result of the laxity from the Cameroon government.
The children died. They just went and gave condolence visits and great days of mourning. That is not enough. Who killed these children? Why? And we looked into it and solved it. Now, these are my colleagues that are following the same fate of these children because of the laxity of stakeholders in this country.
They go further to say the government has to sit up and take appropriate measures to stop the killings in the country.
If the stakeholders involved don't sit up, the insecurity will swallow the whole of this nation. I think it is about time the stakeholders in this nation stand up and learn to face causes of things and bring out solutions, not the consequences, because they have instead allowed the object and they are chasing shadows. The government on their own part, I believe they are not doing their best. They are risking our lives, and that is why it has just given right to any Jack and Jill to take control into his or her hands and does what he likes.
As a result, they share diverse opinions on the resolution and a possible end of the Anglophone crisis.
It will come to an end. It has to come to an end as long as God liveth. But it will not come to an end by magic. What am I saying? We need to come together as the people of Cameroon and look into our problem without distinction.
I think that for peace to come back in this country, the head of this country has a very big role to play in the resolving of this problem, because I think that anything that has a beginning has an end.
This situation, this conflict, I'm not sure it will end one day.
Some teachers ending that report there by Frinu Crispin as they reacted to the kidnap of teachers in the Northwest region. And talking of which, the governor of the Northwest region, Royalfm, has disclosed that a special security mechanism has been set up in schools across the region to ensure the safety of learners and teachers. Governor Royalfm was speaking this Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, at the Regional Administrative and Security Coordination meeting in Bamenda, where he encouraged the population to assist the authorities in the success of this security plan. Take a listen to the governor of the Northwest region.
A special security device has been set up by the generals in charge of security at the headquarters of the region and in the other divisions. After the sad incidents, we level up those measures. It is not possible for a security man to be behind every student. Therefore, we are appealing to the population to continue organizing themselves in peace group in our various communities, including schools.
Meantime, Human Rights Watch report of Monday, November 2nd, 2020 has called on the government of Cameroon to ensure independent and effective investigations over the killing of 7 children at the Mother Francisca Bilingual Academy in Kumba on October 24, 2020 by yet-to-be-identified gunmen. Our reporter Jementa read through the report and now reports.
According to the Human Rights Watch report, no one claimed responsibility for the October 24th killings in Kumba, but the government has accused armed separatists who have called for a boycott of education in the Anglophone region since 2017. The vice president of the Ambazonian interim government said in a statement on the 25th of October 2020 that Cameroonian soldiers should carry out the attack, while on the day of the attack, Cameroon's communication minister announced an investigation. 4 days later, the minister said that security forces had neutralized a separatist fighter who was allegedly among those responsible. The Africa Deputy Director of Human Rights Watch, Ida Soya, said the authorities should ensure that the promised investigation is independent, effective, and impartial, and that those responsible for this massacre should be brought to book. Calling on the Cameroon government to approach the African Union and United Nations as necessary for technical support and expertise to ensure an effective investigations, the Human Rights Watch equally called on authorities to desist from making unfounded accusations and speculation with respect to local or community complicity in the attack. The attack in Kumba prompted a national and international outcry. By so doing, the spokesperson of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights said killings, children, and attacks on educational facilities constitute serious violation of international law, and that those responsible must be held accountable. And to pay homage to the kids murdered in Kumba, the head of state, President Paul Biya, declared October 31st as the day of national mourning.
Jementa with the reading of the report by Human Rights Watch. Now, away from the atrocities of the Anglophone crisis, the president-elect of the United Councils and Cities of Cameroon has promised to be innovative, efficient, and credible so as to merit the confidence of the members of the association. The mayor of the Yaoundé 7 municipality, Augustin Tamba, was speaking shortly after his election to the helm of the United Councils and Cities of Cameroon. He backed home 198 votes against 165 for his opponent, Abubakar Abo. The election unfolded during the 5th General Assembly of the association, chaired by the Minister of Decentralization and Local Development, Georges Elangaobam. Here now is an excerpt or a reaction of the mayor, of whom who was one of those who voted.
The first is that we have to talk about the revision of the status of UCC. UCC has been so dormant in a way that our plan was to come in and revise the statutes, and as such we'll be able to follow up everything. We know that this country, if it has to grow today, it must go through councils, and councils are headed by this association, the United Councils and Cities of Cameroon. We have to look that we work in collaboration with the government to see that the text of applications signed and put in place so that councils can start functioning fully well for us to together develop this country.
You are listening to the 2 p.m. news on 88.4 Royal FM and live on Facebook on Royal FM Cameroon. Out of the country in Ivory Coast, the residents of Henri Konan Bédié, leader of the opposition party who does not recognize the re-election of President Alassane Dramane Ouattara, it has been surrounded since yesterday, November 3, by police force. In a joint statement, the Community of West African States and the African Union, as well as the United Nations, called on all parties in Ivory Coast to restraint. In Austria, the attack in Vienna, which took place on Monday evening, November 2nd, left 4 people dead and 20 wounded, with 3 of them in critical condition. The Islamic State organization claims responsibility for the attack committed in the heart of the Austrian capital by at least one attacker. The attacker, killed by the police, was a sympathizer of the organization Islamic State, as announced yesterday, November 3rd, by the Austrian Minister of the Interior, Karl Nehammer. Let's now take you to the US of A. The 2020 U.S. presidential elections, the road to the White House, the special page in the news. Good afternoon to you, Abel Bilasubari.
Good afternoon to you, Promise Akante.
Abel, the race between Donald John Trump and Joe Biden is on a very, very tight edge with no clear winner as vote counting continues.
Indeed, Promise Akante, results suggest a tight context in important battlegrounds including Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. But when we look at the trend in the election, the BBC says Joe Biden is leading by 224 against 213 for Donald Trump. The Fox News puts Joe Biden at 238 against 213 for Donald Trump. We Clear Politics, a U.S. election monitoring site, puts Joe Biden at 225 against 213 for Donald Trump. According to France 24, Joe Biden is leading by 238 against 213 for Donald Trump. Both candidates need 270 votes to win the White House. It is this quest for winning the White House that Donald Trump earlier today announced that he is leading the American election, and called for his supporters to celebrate with him.
We had such a big night. You just take a look at all of these states that we've won tonight, and then you take a look at the kind of margins that we've won them by. And all of a sudden, it's not like we're up 12 votes and we have 60% left. We won states, and all of a sudden, I said, what happened to the election? It's off. And we have all these announcers saying, what happened? And then they said, oh, because you know what happened? They knew they couldn't win. So they said, let's go to court. And did I predict this, Newt? Did I say this? I've been saying this from the day I heard they were going to send out tens of millions of ballots. I said exactly, because either they were going to win, or if they didn't win, they'll take us to court. So Florida was a tremendous victory, 377,000.
Joe Biden, Democratic challenger, wasted no time to challenge Donald Trump by saying that it is the American people that will decide who is the winner.
It's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare who's won this election. That's the decision of the American people. But I'm optimistic about this outcome. And I want to thank every one of you who came out, voted in this election. And by the way, Chris Coons and the Democrats, congratulations here in Delaware. Hey, John, the Gov, the whole team, man. You've done a great job. I'm grateful to the poll workers, to our volunteers, our canvassers, everyone who participated in this democratic process. And I'm grateful to all my supporters here in Delaware and all across the nation. You heard me say it before. Every time I walk out of my grandpa's house up in Scranton, he'd yell, Joey, keep the faith. And my grandma, when she was alive, yelled, no, Joey, spread it. Keep the faith, guys. We're going to win this.
Other results that just came in show that Donald Trump is leading in vote count in the states of Pennsylvania and Michigan, while Joe Biden is leading in Wisconsin. Cameroonians too have been reacting following the outing of Donald Trump, asking the question, is the American election still credible in the eyes of the world?
In places like America and Western Europe, it's credible because election will take place today, the next day or the same day, the result will be out. They have their digital equipment to control the election. Not Africans. They use their manual stuffs. They use a pen and paper to count 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not credible because from there thieves come inside. Fraud can come inside also. So for my belief, a presidential election is still credible in the eyes of the world, but not in Africa.
Elections is elections, and credibility of it all over the whole world is really a doubtful situation because since Donald Trump was elected in 2016, there have been, a lot of talk of how the system was hacked, and so it tells you that credibility is really very difficult to have when election comes. It is politics, and everybody is playing in order to have his or her own goals being scored, and so I think the credibility is a very difficult task.
According to the election, the Democrats are leading the House of Representatives by 180 against 171 for the Republicans. In the Senate, the Republicans have 47 against 46 for the Democrats. The vote is still going on, Promise County, and the election is open for both candidates.
And we expect that you will be our eyes and ears as we have updates from the US of A. The 2020 U.S. presidential elections, the road to the White House, that was the special page of the news. Back in Cameroon, we take you into the Lions. Then it's that the intermediate Lions of Cameroon face Equatorial Guinean side Futuro Kings in an international friendly today. The game, which begins in about 2 hours from now, that's at 3 p.m., will take place at the Amadou Ahidjo Stadium in Yaoundé. Mbeng Emmanuel in the following report says the head coach of the team has got the chance to silence his critics.
Martin Tongo Pile's winning start with Cameroon's intermediate Lions speaks volume of his devotion to guide the Central African nation to the maiden Chan title next year. But today's friendly game can further seduce die-hard supporters to switch camps after growing worries on the team's form and productivity. Appointed last October 21st to replace Yves Clement Aroga, the 62-year-old tactician beat Canon of Yaoundé on his debut with Francis Elimbi and Samuel Lane on target. Recently, Martin Tungo Pile released 6 players while calling on some 7 others to integrate the squad, proof of his commitment to fashion a rock-hard and resilient squad after facing reprobation prior to his ascension to the top job. With several high-profile friendly games planned for the coming weeks, today's fixture can revive the fans' trust for the selection as they continue to gear up for the African Nations Football Championship next year. Also, fans will be looking to see how the team's technical staff blends their savoir-faire to bring about positive and impressive results. Cameroon champions PW Bamenda drew goalless with Futuro Kings, while the vice champions Cotton Sports of Garwa beat them by 3-0. It does look like an ordinary friendly fixture at first sight, but has no doubt got a lot of stakes. A second consecutive victory for Martin Tungo Pile will be more than welcomed, but the team's style of play and ability to produce brilliance will leave the fans gladdened.
Thank you very much, Ben Emmanuel. And in more sports news, the Cameroon Football Federation has requested for explanation from Panther Sportif of Day for taking part in the opening game of the 2020-2021 championship against Cotton Sport of Garoua on Sunday, November 1st, 2020, without players' license and authorization. The Cameroon Football Regulatory Body is currently meeting in its executive meeting in Yaoundé. Let's now welcome Flora Ngo Yam with a summary of this newscast in French. Good afternoon to you, Flora.
Good afternoon, Promise Akante. 4 novembre 1982, 4 novembre 2020, cela fait exactement 38 ans que le président Paul Biya succède à son prédécesseur Amadou Ahidjo à la magistrature suprême. Commune et ville unie du Cameroun, Augustin Tamba succède à Émile Andé Andé à l'issue de l'assemblée élective du bureau national de l'association tenue hier au palais de congrès de Yaoundé. Enseignants et élèves kidnappés à Kumbo dans la région du nord-ouest, seuls les élèves ont été relâchés et jusqu'ici, malgré la mobilisation des syndicats des enseignants, ces derniers sont toujours en captivité. Mouvement d'humeur au commissariat de Mokolo en fin d'après-midi d'hier. Des commerçants furieux ont pris d'assaut le bâtiment pour exprimer leur ras-le-bol vis-à-vis des policiers qui prélèvent des taxes à la place des agents de la commune. À l'étranger, c'est toujours en rang serré que Trump et Biden attendent les résultats finaux de l'élection présidentielle aux États-Unis. Enfin, en sport, la Fédération camerounaise de football adresse une demande d'information aux clubs Panthère Dundee et Coton Sport de Garoua qui ont pris part